Bienvenidos a mi canal. Yo soy Vitter. Hace unas semanas tuve la suerte de hacer una entrevista increíble con el creador de God of War y Twisted Metal, entre otros juegos, que tuvo una enorme amabilidad. Pudimos charlar más de 1 hora y media y realmente yo venía entre nervioso, oxidadísimo mi inglés, no hablaba creo que desde 2013, una cosa así. Obviamente con las ganas de poder estar a la altura. Agradecerle a David su grandiosa amabilidad. Un tipo así que se tome su tiempo para venir al stream de alguien que recién está empezando. No lo hace todo el mundo, así que nuevamente muchas gracias David. Tocamos muchísimos temas. La realidad actual de PlayStation, los rumores sobre que ahora se van a enfocar solo en AAA. Hablamos sobre el impacto que está teniendo en la industria Game Pass. Hablamos de un proyecto que él pitchó a Sony que no prosperó. Hablamos de su proceso creativo. Bueno, muchísimas cosas interesantísimas en donde David nos dio todo su conocimiento y su opinión. Al final del video también dejé un poco de las reacciones apenas terminó el stream para que vean cómo estaba. Esta es una invitación para el que quiera sumarse, contarme sobre sus procesos creativos. La verdad que me encanta, así que ya saben, mis DMs están abiertos. Que lo disfruten, los dejo con la conversación.
Well, I'll entertain everybody while you are troubleshooting. Hello, everybody. Welcome to VITTERNOW's very first interview. He's a big boy now. He couldn't get Cliff Bleszinski. He couldn't get Neil Druckmann. He sure as fuck couldn't get Corey Barlog. But guess who's here? It's your old reliable friend, Papa Jaffe. Now, Returnal or second Extinction. Which one you playing?
To play?
Yeah, are you going to play Second Extinction?
Sadly, I don't have a PS5 to play Returnal, but that would be the game that I would like to play.
Yeah, I am looking forward to playing it. I hear it's really hard. It may be too hard for me, but I'm looking forward to it. Yeah, I'm addicted as crazy to Days Gone right now, though. I'm really can't stop playing the damn thing.
So, sorry. Now we can start finally. I'm sorry. Yeah, Days Gone is great, but I haven't finished it. I have a problem with long fucking ass games, you know?
Oh yeah, me too. Me too. so far so good.
Yeah, it's pretty addictive. The gameplay loop, I find it very addictive. I don't know about you, but
I do. Yeah, I absolutely do. It's really interesting because that particular game, out of all the Sony first-party games of late, it obviously isn't as polished as all the other ones. But at a moment-to-moment and sort of a meta gameplay level, it's probably at a simulation systems-based level, it's probably one of their best games they've put out in a long time, like at a game level. And I love Last of Us 2, love God of War.
The world is insane.
Yeah. It is.
I mean, it's like you say, there are aspects like are not as polished as maybe a Naughty Dog game, like the cutscenes or the story is not interwoven. I don't know if it's the right word in the best way, like it's suddenly appears on your screen, and
it's a little janky, is I think a way to put it, but. You know, it doesn't bother me. I know it definitely bothers some people, but for me, I can live with it, especially if the game on the other side of the cutscene is as interesting as it is.
Yeah, of course. So you've been playing that for how many hours?
I don't know. Is there a way to know that on PS5? People are like, oh, there's a place you can go on PS5.
Yeah, I think it's in the menu, but I can't point you at it because...
well, I will bring it up while we're talking. It's on this other screen, and I'll let you know. I would be curious how long I've been playing it. It feels like, I'm going to guess before I even open the game, it feels probably like about maybe 15 hours.
Oh. Yeah, that's maybe around what I played. I don't want to spoil anything. I know it's not the new game, but maybe somebody didn't play it.
Right.
But anyways, I think, I saw that you were on the press on because the director was speaking to you in Gavin Plus Games.
That's right. We had we had the gameplay director, which was Jeff Ross, and then a couple of days after that, we had John Garvin, who was kind of the narrative story world director of the whole kind of narrative.
Right. Yeah, and he was saying remarks like maybe if you want a sequel, you have to buy it when it releases. I could not catch the full interview yet. I really want to. But I'm sure he was maybe misquoted a bit because it sounded like a more assholey type of.
No, I mean, that is exactly what he said, but I think it's important. And it isn't even. So what he said exactly was he said, all these people asking about a Days Gone 2 sequel.
Yeah.
He's like, just so you know, in general, if you want to support a game and hope it gets a sequel, you should buy it at fucking full price, not wait for a sale or wait for it to be free or blah, blah, blah. And his point was not, it was aggressive language, and he and I, that's just how we talk. It wasn't, and some people were coming back. It's like, well, fuck you, John Garvin. I don't have the money to do that. Or you're an asshole, and it's like, John's a nice guy. He wasn't like saying, you don't get to ask for a sequel if you had to save up your money and buy your kids medicine. Fuck you. I want your money. What he was really talking about was just the economy of the business and saying, look, the fact of the matter is the audience doesn't owe the developer anything. And the audience should get the best deal they can always get.
Of course. But
he's just saying, practically speaking, these things have real consequences. And so, it's not your job to support the developer, but if you're curious about why some things get sequels and some things don't, in the case of maybe something like Days Gone, a lot of people who did get it got it after it was discounted, got it later or whatever. And that is a real thing. But I don't think he was saying, I blame you dumb gamers, fuck you. It wasn't like that. It was conveyed like that. But anybody who saw the whole interview would know that he was talking about it more in the context of this is sort of how the business works. Sony puts in so much money to a game, and then they get, that 60, 70, whatever dollars it is. There's a percentage that they get, and that goes back to pay for the cost of the game. And then they're into profit. And in the case of Days Gone, and a lot of it isn't even my understanding, is a game, and it's really weird because I've heard a couple of different stories, but the rough consistent thing I've heard is that I guess Sony PR, I think it would have been PR, not marketing. Sony PR sent out review code of the game, and there was a day one patch, and there was a whole list of notes of like, hey, there's going to be a lot of shit that is buggy, but it's going to get fixed. And that happens a lot. And usually PR will tell, and PR may have told, I don't know, but the story kind of goes that they sent this out, but they didn't push the reviewers to say, look, we need you to either make a lot of these bugs clear that they're addressed in the day one patch, or maybe review the day one patch version. I don't know, but it sounds like a lot of the reasons they had a stumble in this game was because a lot of reviewers were reviewing just that initial build, which was really buggy. And the other thing that's fascinating, though, I don't want to stay on this too long unless you do.
No, it's awesome.
Well, what's fascinating to me about it, because now I'm really playing the game. I don't know how deep I am. I have the game up. If you can tell me how many hours, but I've been playing it for a while.
Yeah.
And some people say the reason the game didn't do that well is because some of the reviewers were sort of pushing this social justice warrior theme.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, whatever. And some people were like, oh, it's like, Deacon, the main character, sells this girl to slavers, and it's just another white guy game. And I'm like, what John Garvin said is, he said, it's weird. It's like those people didn't even finish the game. So I've been playing it, and I'm like, they address all of that. Like it is baked into the story that Deacon is, he doesn't sell anybody. I mean, I guess he does, but he saves this girl's life.
Yeah.
He says, hey, there's this place where you will be safe. And yes, she has to work. And when he realizes that, oh shit, I've done a bad thing. There's all these missions where he goes and gets her out and goes and saves her and is like, don't go back to those people. And there's a black lesbian couple in the goddamn game. I don't know how long into the game where it's clearly, and they even address where are all the black bikers. I mean, it's not as if, if the reviews had been, if those specific reviews had been, I don't like the way that they're addressing misogyny, racism, slavery, human rights. I think at least you would say, I respect that. You may not like the writing, but it really is. John was right. It really is almost like these people didn't play the game enough, because all that stuff is addressed. It's not just, they don't, it's crazy.
Yeah, they brushed, maybe they played a bit and then made a review. Maybe that's not the honest way, but no. But what's interesting about it, it's the way that reviews work, because nowadays we know the games are not always finished when they release.
What do you mean by define finished? I mean, they're like what? Like
they evolve. Maybe not a single player game, but there's a mindset that maybe it will take a few months to get better. But I don't know. For example, Cyberpunk, I pre-ordered it. I canceled it when I knew that in my PS4 was shit. But I want to play it, so I'm waiting like a year or two, maybe not for the price, but because I know they will fix it. I know they work hard. So, but later this last few years, I saw several press places making a comeback and revisiting reviews, making new reviews of games after they get patched, and I see this trend getting more and more common. So I wonder, from the development side and the people that put the money on this project, maybe it varies, but when do they say, no, this game has no future for a sequel? Because now we know that some people from Sony band left, are not working, supposedly because of Jason Schreier's, news.
Well, let's be clear. One guy left. One guy was fired.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so probably in key places, in key roles. So if there ever were a new Days Gone, it would be with different people. Maybe that's not bad, but I don't know. I can't understand when they say there is not going to be, because it sold well. Now releasing it on PlayStation Plus, it will make more fans, obviously, because the game is good. So I don't know. Maybe in a year, Sony says, "Well, what about Days Gone? It sold well. We have the numbers. We have statistics. So I don't know. What about the process? It's so set in stone. I don't know if I'm asking something that is coherent or not.
I mean, I'm listening and I'm interested, but I don't know. I don't know what your question is yet.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Okay.
What I mean is, they say there is not going to be a sequel. I don't know if that's actually real, because maybe in a year they say, "Oh man, this is something we didn't think about before." There is no way someone could say in this.
Well, you can't be definitive. I mean, the only, first off, let's be clear. There's also a sense of that particular game. If you talk to Jason Schreier's article, or if you talk to some people at Bend, or if you listen to the interview with Jeff and John, no one, was it in development? How long? I mean, I know things that I can't say. Okay. But what I will tell you is that, right now, I can almost say, I don't know this, but I can almost say, totally true. There is no Days Gone sequel in development. Okay. But do I think sure if it catches on because it is on PS Plus right now, and as more people get PS5s and it plays great on PS5, absolutely. I mean, Sony's a smart company. If suddenly it builds a fan base that grows over time, of course they'll make another one.
Yeah,
but it's
sense.
different. It's different than, like, say, Twisted Metal, right? A lot of there's a hardcore fan base for Twisted Metal.
Yes, I've been asked today. I've been asked several questions about it.
Right, but it doesn't grow, right? And there's nothing right now except maybe this TV series that may happen that will allow that fan base to grow. But short of that, there's no real incentive right now for Sony to do much, from what I can tell, with the Twisted Metal franchise, because there's a ceiling to the number of people that really vibe with it. Whereas Days Gone, I think, because it had kind of this weird launch and some weird reviews that probably don't really bear out when you actually play it, and because now it's on PS Plus, there's a possibility it could do one of those things like movies do this sometimes, TV series do this sometimes, where they get canceled or they're like just semi-hits in the movie theater.
Yeah,
but they come back. And people are like, holy shit, that was really good. And then they make a sequel. So, I mean, it's possible. Mm-hmm. But, I think it would have to be a dramatic upswing in interest in Days Gone for that to happen. And it might. I mean, I hadn't played it until a month ago. And I was just like, oh, it's kind of cool, whatever. Yeah. I knew about it. And now I'm like, I fucking love this game. So hopefully it'll catch on more.
Maybe being a game about zombies, it hurt it. Maybe because everybody thought this is Last of Us, or we have The Last of Us. Why do we play this? I don't know.
It does suffer. I mean, on the surface, and this is kind of one of the problems with the game industry, is that unless you are really into video game design or really into games in general, the language of talking about gameplay is very different and very not arcane, but it's very. It kind of doesn't hit with your average consumer. But if you show them great visuals and zombies and set pieces, they go, oh, I want that. Excellent. Well, in the case of Days Gone, it just, on the surface, it looks like a lot of other games. Yeah. But when you play it, and I love Last of Us Part 2, and I love Days Gone, but they are incredibly different experiences.
Yeah, of course.
They are. But they work. For somebody who can't talk about games and doesn't have the language to understand why they're different at a conversational level, they're just like, oh, it's the same game. Why do I want that? I'll go play Spider-Man. It's like, because it's really different.
Maybe marketing-wise, it's difficult to convey what's the different take on the world of post-apocalyptic zombie games.
It's the difference between Max Payne and Grand Theft Auto.
Yeah.
Right. Grand Theft Auto and Max Payne kind of live in the same kind of universe. Yeah. I mean, Grand Theft Auto is a little bit more cynical and whatnot, or a little bit more silly and satirical. But no one would compare Max Payne to Grand Theft Auto in the gameplay. They're totally different games.
Yeah, of course.
That's very much like Days Gone and Last of Us 2.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. That's totally true. And, well, I just want to start the interview now, or maybe the conversation, with talking about your process, your life as a game developer, and of course...
Do you really want to talk about that? Do you really give a fuck? You know my life as a game developer. I made Twisted Metal. I made God of War with the team. All these, I say we, but it's a huge team effort.
Yeah.
And then I made Calling on Cars, which a lot of people love, but it didn't do that well. It barely broke even. Twisted Metal 2012 we made, which I got a bonus check off of it, not a lot. We paid its money back, cool. But we had some launch day issues or launch month issues.
Yeah, I remember. Yes.
And then my last game was Drawn to Death, which I love, and I think it's brilliant and wonderful and some of the best design I've done. And it was the biggest failure of my career in regards to sales, in regards to critical acclaim. The critics seem to enjoy just shitting all over it.
Well, but
that's the story. I started as a tester. I became a designer. Blah.
Yeah, but
I'm more than happy to go into it. But
No,
is
no,
that
I'm interested. I'm interested.
No, is that the meat? Is that the meat?
No, no. No, it's
Come on.
just I want to address that because there are some questions I have that are related.
All right, go. Let's do it.
So, first of all, the greatest asset for a man is time. So I thank you for giving me some of yours.
Yeah, I'm not in a rush. Let's talk about fun shit. Let's get to the heart of it.
Of course. What I mean is, like you said, you started as a tester in Cliffhanger, and there is some misconception that making games it's playing games all day, which is fucking lie. And but being a tester means playing games all day, but of course it must be very difficult. So.
Well, I think the verb is wrong. It's not playing games all day. It is trying to break games all day. It's trying to test games all day. It's the equivalent maybe of going out to having a meal that you love and you get to chew it, but then you have to spit it out and write about how it tasted. So you never ever really get full. It's not an enjoyable meal after a while. It just is like you get the flavor, but it's very mechanical. It's a lot of work, and that's what testing is like. It's very valuable. It's incredibly.
Did it change? Of course, I guess it changed since you started to now. I guess there is more protagonism for this role than before.
Yes. There's more so I started at Sony ImageSoft before there even was a PlayStation, and I was one of 3 testers, and we were testing. It was like Christmas. The day I walked into Sony ImageSoft for my first day at work, I was right out of college. I went to my cube, and there was a guy on the left of me, and a guy on the right of me. We were all 3 testers. And I had a Sega Genesis, a Sega CD, a Sega Game Gear, a Sega Game Gear, a Game Boy, a Super Nintendo, an NES, and a computer.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh my God, this is amazing, right? I had all of the systems that were on the market for the most part. And it was, and I thought I was going to get fired because it took me so long to get through my first game. I'm not a fast gamer. I'm not a great gamer. That's not really why they hired me, it turns out. But, the first game I tested, there's like 3 games I tested. I don't know if it was a game called Gearworks or Hook, based on the Spielberg movie. Yeah. And it took me 3 days to finish Hook. And the other testers, it took them 3 hours to finish Hook. And I was going to therapy at the time, and I remember going to my therapist and saying, I think they're going to fire me. And he says, why? I'm like, because I'm really bad at it. But apparently I found really good bugs, and I had really good insight into what was wrong at parts of the game. And they said, let's keep them. Fuck it. Why not? So it kind of worked out. But that's how it worked out.
And what I want to ask you about is more about the process of creating games. Maybe the idea. If it's a brainstorming process, if it's a pitch that you do to a studio or Sony, maybe when you created these incredibly big franchises, how the process went about. I don't know, maybe you went to Sony and said, I have this idea for a game, or it was more like a team thinking different ideas.
Well, I mean, a lot has changed since those days, right? Because the games have gotten so much more expensive. When I was at Sony, it was much freer. Like, you didn't have as many hoops to jump through because the budgets weren't that big. And I've told this story before. It's like literally the pitch to get the green light approval for Twisted Metal 1, which cost all of $850,000 to make the game. Game budgets are now over $200 million, right?
Yes.
So it was literally sitting around a table, and the head of marketing came to me in the meeting and said, okay, well, what do you want to make? And I said, I want to make this kind of 3D car game where you're going around a city with guns. And he says, cool, go make it. Like, that was it, right? And so my career at Sony, and one of the reasons I probably would not fit in at Sony anymore, and might, if I go back to games, might actually be happier and more of a valuable contributor and collaborator, is that as the budgets went up, and I didn't experience this, but it's where it is now because I left before this happened. As the budgets went up, understandably, you got a lot more people who had to sit in the kitchen as cooks and go, okay, well, excuse me, the game has to be this, it's got to do this, you can't do that. And it's not that they're micromanaging and being assholes. Sony still has probably the very best management of the creative process in the industry, maybe across numerous industries. But the fact of the matter is, when you're rolling these $200 million dice, you've got to be a lot more careful, and you've got to be more political, and you've got to be more, aware of, the amount that I used to think about it like this. I used to think about it like, I don't really give a fuck. It's my vision. And then it becomes the team's vision. And our job for the audience is to figure out how to sell our vision to the audience. How do we improve it? How do we look at focus test? How do we look at play test to make them love what we love? But it's different now. Now, of course, that's still part of the process. And of course, when a Corey makes a game or a Druckmann makes a game or a John Garvin makes a game, they still, you can't play Days Gone or God of War or Last of Us and not see the heartbeat of those creative leaders in those games. It's very clear. But there is also now that vision that you're working really hard to make the audience love has been kind of more massaged and approved, and it's had to get a lot more hands on it to say that vision is acceptable for us to spend $200 million on. And so that's kind of how it's different. But it used to just be, I remember I would go to Shuhei and Alan Becker, my boss, Shuhei Yoshida, Alan Becker. And they're like, okay, what do you want to make? And I'd go into Alan's office and I'd put on a John Williams soundtrack that fit the concept art I had done for a new game. And I'd do my whole pitch and they'd say, okay, go, you got 6 months, 3 months, go see what you can do. It doesn't mean that anyone can.
Unbelievable.
And it doesn't mean that I never got told no. It just means that there was a lot more freedom.
The stakes were lower, let's say.
The stakes were lower, and it's really interesting. And I know, and I think it's correct that fans of Sony are not skeptical negatively, but they're very curious as they stand back and watch.
The changes.
Holst and they watch Jim Ryan, not because they're fucking up necessarily, but because when you're playing the game at this high stakes, are they going to be able, to a degree that satisfies the Sony fan base, to continue putting out things that are fresh and interesting but still successful, or are they going to go the way of Activision and EA? I think with Returnal coming out this Friday, based on the previews, a lot of people are breathing a bit of a sigh of relief, because the previews have been really good. I'm worried it might be a little too hard for me personally, but I've talked to some people who played it and they're like, I don't think that's true. But that's a personal thing. But I think a lot of fans now are going, this is good that, okay, they're going to spend this money on Returnal. So
maybe it's not the biggest budget. I don't know, but
it's more expensive than you would think. I will tell you that. It was in development for a long time.
Okay, but talking about Returnal, I know that you're maybe a creator that likes to focus mainly on gameplay. I don't know if I'm mistaken, but
you're mistaken.
I'm mistaken. Okay, because your latest games are more about the mechanics. Maybe that's why I'm saying this. But Returnal seems that the studio that created it, it's renowned for their mechanics, for making games that are arcadey, that are fun. So what I trust them to have made, it's an excellent and fun game in those aspects. What I'm curious about, it's about the development of the story, of the cinematics that seem to look great, but I don't know if the story is going to have the payoff that the gameplay will surely have.
Right.
That's the question, actually.
Well, yeah, we don't know. I mean, a lot of people know because reviewers are playing it now, and it's actually broken street date. A lot of people have it now. But all I can tell you is there was a time about 4 months ago when Sony did some kind of show or state of play or something.
Yeah.
And it was the first time my ears kind of perked up because until then I was like, oh, Returnal's just this sci-fi shooter. Maybe I'll pay attention to it down the road.
Yeah.
And the woman you play, Celine, maybe her name is, the astronaut, suddenly she's walking around this planet that's clearly alien.
Yeah, and then it's a house.
And then suddenly there's the house she grew up in. And I'm going, okay, now I'm very interested, right? And just to be clear, it's not that I love stories and games, and I love intellectual properties. I just like them when they are embedded in the game mechanics. As much as I love, like, Last of Us 2, I think is brilliant. For me, I enjoy and I love that game. I would rather as much storytelling as possible, if not all of it,
through
be done through gameplay. But I wouldn't want to just make pure. If I were to make another game right now, depending on what it was, I'm certainly interested in getting into narrative and story again and characters again, but I would want it to be through gameplay mostly, if possible.
So do you come up first with ideas for the gameplay and then stories that will justify it, or the other way around? How's your process?
That's changed too. And one of the reasons, at least at these budgets or any budget really, that I probably I still think I have fuel in the tank if I decide to go back and make games, if that becomes something I want to do, at least in some capacity. But
please.
But to be fair though, there was a window there where what I did really well was world building, IP, high concepts, commercial concepts, things like that. And these days, because games are so expensive, at least if we're talking console, it's so expensive, and it by definition is so execution, right? That you could put out a game back in the day that was really weird and interesting and cool, and it wasn't the prettiest girl at the dance, but it didn't matter, right? Like Twisted Metal was nowhere near as good looking as Destruction Derby. It was nowhere near as good looking and polished as Wipeout.
No, but it has more personality.
It had a very strong heartbeat to it, right? It doesn't mean those games don't exist anymore. It just means that at the budgets we're talking, I think a studio like Sony would probably rather roll the dice on a $200 million Uncharted 5 than a $200 million game that has a really cool idea, but the team isn't up to Naughty Dog standards. All you have to do is look at Bend, Oregon. Think about the fact that there is a studio on the planet, which is called Sony, that looks at Days Gone, which is a phenomenal experience, and literally says that's not good enough. I'm not saying for a sequel. I'm not casting stones. I mean, that's how successful they are. That they can literally look at Days Gone and say, that's not good enough to meet our standards. I mean, that's staggering, but that speaks to how successful they've been.
Yeah, and maybe about the doubts that fans have about this sudden change of management and the strategy, those news that said, no, we are going to focus on AAA only or franchises. I hope they still have those weird games that Sony used to make. Maybe Returnal is one of them.
Returnal at least is a stopgap. Sony, again, I talked about this on my stream the other day. Colin Moriarty is? So Colin had a really, and I'm going to butcher his wording, but he had a really good point on Sacred Symbols, his podcast the other day, where he was basically talking about how Sony's lack of communication and or their communication that is just very sterile.
Cold.
It's very cold and it's no longer fun. And nobody really, I don't know the value of it being fun, right? Sony didn't necessarily have to come out and say anything. But as a fan, all I can tell you, all I know for sure is I'm glad they did. I'm glad they started talking a little bit more.
Yeah,
I'm glad people got
recently.
more of a sense of Returnal. And even though here's the tricky part with Returnal though. The only thing I know that's kind of inside is it was really expensive. Like you look at it and go, I don't mean it was like, Last of Us Part 2 expensive, but for a game with what it is and how much content there is, it's pretty pricey. And you have to assume it is because they're charging $70 for it. Mm-hmm. And so what I am curious about, just at an intellectual level, is as much as I think people are going to love this game, and I may love this game, I'm very much looking forward to it, even though I'm worried I won't be able to play it that well, is that because it is so hardcore and because it is so punishing, and because it was expensive, is it going to be like, is Sony going to... Well, yeah, to the point that Sony says, yeah, there's no sequel to that either. And these are things we don't know. We don't know if Housemarque went to Sony and pitched them a really hardcore game, or it literally just became hardcore over the course of production, and that wasn't what Sony... Who the fuck knows? Not me. But I'm just curious that... I guess what I'm trying to say is you have to be careful in saying, oh, everything's fine at Sony because we have Returnal coming out.
Yeah.
Returnal may come out and it may do like Bloodborne numbers, which are great, but they're not sequel great. Mm-hmm. People will tell you, oh, well, there's no sequel to Bloodborne because From Software didn't have time to make it.
Yeah.
Really? Really? There are other developers. If Sony, it's not like Sony hasn't gone to other places with Uncharted.
Yeah.
It's not like Sony hasn't gone to other places with God of War. It's not like, oh, we would love to make a Bloodborne sequel, but no, they're too busy. Come on. Ridiculous.
Yeah, I mean, maybe it's the game it's punishing, but more like, I don't know, I had fun with a punishing game like Hotline Miami, which is not Dark Souls or anything like that. It's a different kind of punishing. It's more inviting to me, that I'm more, I don't know, story friendly for the games. I'm not just about the punishing and the dying.
I think there are gamers that are loving the fact it's going to be hard, but
yeah,
I think that's a minority.
Yeah. So talking about PlayStation and the industry, Game Pass, the impact is having, and I wonder what's the future of AAA games, because maybe for Game Pass it doesn't make much sense, even though they bought ZeniMax and Bethesda. But if you want to keep people coming back next month, maybe you go with more chapter-like games, or maybe a TV show style game. I don't know, maybe episodic. So that maybe will hurt the current AAA space, or what do you see coming from that impact that Game Pass is having?
Well, I think it's kind of too early to know the impact it's having. I think right now everybody who talks about something like Game Pass or Amazon Luna, which is obviously not even out of beta yet, or if PlayStation Now is going to get an upgrade, I think we're all just kind of guessing, right? What I tweeted this morning, which I really find interesting, is this weekend, you have a really good example of, at least so far, and I don't think Xbox doesn't want to make AAA games. I don't think they don't. I'm sure they want to go head-to-head at times with Sony with their first party. They've never shown an ability to do that, ever. And maybe they never will, or maybe this is who knows.
But maybe it doesn't make sense having to spend that money.
That's right. So what's interesting about this weekend is you've got Second Extinction, which is a co-op shooter of humans versus dinosaurs, which sounds great.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not it's kind of like Left 4 Dead with zombies, but with dinosaurs, right?
Yeah.
And then you've got Returnal, which is polished, refined.
$70.
Well, it's potentially very interesting narrative, great effects, takes use of the DualSense really well. It is clearly a next-gen game, and yet it's also $70.
Yeah.
And it really is very much, I know I sound like a broken record if people have listened to my stuff before, but it really is the difference between going out to like, a nice fast food restaurant, and
Sorry.
a really fancy restaurant.
Of course.
It's like both of them have their places, right? And again, Phil Spencer at Xbox could be hearing this and going, dude, we want to be fine dining too. It's like, great, but you're not right now.
Yeah.
Right now, you're not fine dining. Right now, you are McDonald's of video games, and Sony is, 4-star Michelin dining of video games.
Yeah, yeah.
And that may be differentiated enough that they can both play nice together.
Yeah, of course.
But what I think is, if you look at any other industry, whether it's food, whether it's linear entertainment like movies and TV, whether it's music, good enough and low barrier of entry, whether that's cost or convenience, has always trumped boutique, premier, expensive. Even if you look at Apple, I love Apple, but Apple compared to Android or Mac compared to PCs, it's a cost issue. So I'm sure that hardcore gamers would look at Returnal and go, are you kidding? Second Extinction is like 7 out of 5. And the answer is, most people are fine with the 7 out of 5.
Yeah.
They're okay with it.
Yeah,
most people are fine listening to whatever is in the top 10. They don't of music. They don't care about, oh no, but you have to listen to Coltrane jazz. Listen to how the trumpet. It's like nobody cares. People care, but they're not the majority.
Yeah, they have a little time to spend, free time, and maybe they play the first thing they can, or a little time. So that's the majority of people, not us that we like to play hours or making streams. Right. But I find it. You said Colin Moriarty. I remember too the guys from Kinda Funny. He was part of it. They used to say, or they say actually lately about Sony, that they fear they became again that cocky version of Sony that was when they released the PS3, with all the success, and then I don't know, Andrew House leaving, or I don't know if he left or they boot him. Sean Layden leaving, having Shu moving to indies. It's strange after they had probably the most successful generation after PlayStation 2, for sure. So why would they leave? Maybe they were tired of success. I don't know. But from management saying, no, these guys that gave us this success must go and we must change. I don't know what could motivate that idea.
Well, I can tell you, first off, some of them left, some of them were forced out. Okay, I'll tell you that.
Okay.
That's no real secret. And also, the people who remain were part of that success, right? It's not as if Herman Holst wasn't a key player.
Yeah, of course.
It's not as if Jim Ryan just showed up from Hasbro. He's been at Sony for a long, long time. So I can only speak. I only have an opinion on two things about that. The first one is, I know from the outside, it looked like Sony was arrogant and cocky with the PS3. I think it's important for people to remember that, and I don't think I certainly wouldn't get in trouble legally, so I'm going to say it anyway, but I don't think I would get in trouble emotionally either with people I still care very much about at Sony. But the PS3 generation, we were coming off of, because I was there before there was even a PS1, and I was there from 1 to 4. Mm-hmm. And we were coming off of the most successful console ever, right? Which was PlayStation 2.
Yeah.
And so the guy who was really, the leader of that, everybody looked to Ken Kutaragi and said, you can do no wrong. Yeah. If there's a Jesus of video games, not only are you him, but he has returned, Yeah. So whatever you say, so he had so much power.
Yeah.
And there was so much, there was so much micromanagement going on. Like, I even remember when we first showed off God of War at E3.
Yeah.
And there were these 3D kind of reliefs of almost like statues, but reliefs kind of coming out of the walls. There was a God of War one. There may have been a Connecticut one. There may have been a Gran Turismo one. And I was there with the woman who was leading up marketing on God of War. And I was like, oh, I really don't like that. That doesn't feel like Kratos. We have a couple of days. Can we change that? Oh, well, we have to get approval from Ken. I'm like, you're telling me Ken Kutaragi, the head of PlayStation,
forget it.
is absolutely giving a fuck whether or not the red on Kratos's skirt is red enough. And it's like he's got to approve everything, right?
Maybe she was filtering you.
Yeah, maybe. But there was an absolute sense that I got that it wasn't always so much arrogance as it was. A lot of people probably looked. I mean, look, I sat in the audience with Shannon Studstill, who ran Sony Santa Monica, and we watched that press conference where Kaz is like $600.
Yeah.
and when Phil Harrison is like, hey, right, isn't this isn't the motion great? And we were just like, oh my God, this is a train wreck, right? There were people at Sony that knew. I just don't know if they could do anything. So my point is, I don't know how much of it was arrogance versus going, this is just my opinion. I'm not speaking for the company. I wouldn't do that, and I can't do that. I don't. But that's kind of what I take. But then regarding now, every company, and this is obvious, but it's made up of people. People have ambitions. People are political. Even if they don't think they are, they are. And in that, there are people that always think, not in an arrogant way, that everybody thinks they know how to run. Everybody thinks they know how to be Captain Picard of the Enterprise, right? And so my read of what happened was it was a successful ability for the people that moved into roles of power to say, look at these budgets. They're getting crazy expensive. And yes, we have an Uncharted, we have a Days Gone or Last of Us, we have a God of War, but we also have a Dreams. We also have a Death Stranding. We also have, there was like a couple of, we also have a number of, including mine, although mine wasn't very expensive, Drawn to Death, but I mean, it wasn't spoken about in the same breaths because it was just, it was nothing. Mm-hmm. But it wouldn't, I don't know this. I'm analyzing now based on what I do know, what I feel comfortable sharing. It wouldn't surprise me if what ended up happening was all that success, the people who were able to sort of maneuver into the positions of power were able to say that success doesn't have to go anywhere, but we need to kind of batten down the hatches because Microsoft's coming on strong, the Switch is coming on strong, the budgets are going through the roof. We used to be able to burden or to shoulder the burden of some really arty failures, but I don't think we can deal with that anymore. And I'm not saying that's wrong, by the way. They may be in those positions of power because the powers that be said, that's right. Well, that's simply accurate. I don't know.
And the company, Sony in general, what I can tell from here, obviously reading the press and stuff, that shifted its, its strategy, uniting the company more, having more communication between areas. Not having, maybe in the PS3 era was all decided in hardware in Japan and nobody knew abroad what was going on and the decisions they took with the hardware, and then now it's more open. I don't know if that's the thing that is true or...
Well, I mean, it does seem that at least from the outside looking in, that Sony is absolutely putting more emphasis on a singular vision of leadership, whereas you're absolutely right. Back in the day, it was nice when you could have a game that hit in all territories, which was like a Crash Bandicoot. Okay, God of War did pretty well everywhere. Japan, it wasn't a huge hit, but I know, Capcom published it in Japan, and it did okay for what it was. But, Twisted Metal only did well in America and then a couple of other places, but mostly, the Europeans never liked it at all.
Well, here it has fans. Here it has
fans. Absolutely. It has fans everywhere. But in terms of I have seen Australia as a country, a number of countries in South America and North America seem to respond really well consistently to it. But the more you get into, when you get into Europe, and when you get into Asia, they're just like, get this piece of shit out of my fucking face, right? So, which is fine. But the point is though there was a business model that could support territory-based titles. And now, because the games are so expensive, you can't afford to spend $180 million on a new game if it's only going to appeal to Americans, unless you're only spending, $4 million or something.
Well, but speaking about that, I had a question that has to do with this, with the mass appeal of a franchise. I can't seem to understand why. Maybe you have more insight in the development side. Why don't we have a huge or a great or any game about Superman? Like, it's crazy.
Well, I love Superman.
Yeah,
first off, I have. He's my second favorite superhero. Spider-Man and Superman kind of battle. There's a Superman right back there.
Yeah.
I'm a huge fan of Supergirl. I got a massive crush on Supergirl. I'm way too old to have a crush on Melissa Benoist, but I don't care.
She's incredible.
But I think there's two reasons. The first one is the first one's not a valid reason. It's a ridiculous concept that people are saying that, oh, you can't make it's almost just like a.
Have you seen that guy that did a demo in Unreal?
Yes, I did. On Unreal.
It's incredible.
Yes.
It was one guy.
Yes. Well, I don't think they're saying you can't do it from a production standpoint. They're like, well, Superman's too powerful. What do you do?
Yeah.
I'm like, I don't know. Superman's been around since 1936 or something.
Yeah.
Every issue, they got some challenge. Trust me. We can come up with things, kryptonite bullets, monsters that bleed kryptonite.
Yeah,
we'll come up with. He's vulnerable to magic. That's a dumb fucking thing that people. Yeah, I think the bigger issue is Superman struggles right now, and I don't know if he needs to, but Warner Brothers said, "Well, the common wisdom with Superman,
it's not appealing of the right now, but that's bullshit."
The common wisdom is he's too much of a beacon of hope and good, and he's too black and white. And I'm like, okay, well, that's what I love about him.
Yeah.
That's what I love about that character. And I think more than ever,
we need it now.
Need a character like that. But I think that's a bigger reason that you'll see something like Suicide Squad greenlit, or Batman, or you notice you don't see a Shazam game. Which did pretty well at the box office.
Yeah.
But I really think that's a bigger reason, is that they're not really pushing him because they don't know what to do with him. And and it's really unfortunate, because if you look at and I watched the new Justice League from Snyder. I liked it. I watched the whole thing. I thought it was good. I didn't hate Batman versus Superman.
No.
But I do think that if you look at the way Superman has been portrayed on screen for the last 12 years or whatever, even before that, like Bryan Singer's version of Superman Returns was such a masturbatory homage to Superman 2 that unless you grew up loving the Richard Donner film, you couldn't get into it. So it's been ages, except on television. Like, the best Superman right now is the guy who plays him on Supergirl and Superman and Lois.
Yeah,
because he's playing the heart of Superman.
Yeah, but my question is this. If you have the power, all these companies are fighting for great IP. Isn't it your job to make it great, to make it relevant? So I blame them, because you have Superman, man. It's like you don't do anything with it. It's crazy. And
who are you blaming? Who do you blame?
Oh, maybe Warner Brothers. I don't know who owns it.
And I'm sure somebody went to Warner Brothers and said, "We'll pay for the license to Superman."
Yeah.
But I don't think anyone is. I think if you ran a publisher, and you had $120 million to spend on a next generation game, would you roll the dice on Superman or Wonder Woman, or would you roll the dice on Harley Quinn or Batman?
Well, it makes sense to do it with Batman, because Batman always has public. He's awesome. I love him too. But the thing is, there has to be a first. Batman games sucked before Rocksteady came in and did it greatly. I mean, there has to be a way. I mean, it depends only on the developer, if they love it, if they find the true way to show that he's the best.
If Warner Brothers wanted to reach out to me and say, or anyone really, and say, look, like all you need to do is read like Superman versus the Klan or Superman All Seasons from, I think it was like Jeff Loeb wrote it.
Yeah.
There are wonderful small Superman stories. If somebody were to say, look, we want to make a $5 million Superman game. It's not Grand Theft Auto open world. It is it is almost like a blend of, Gone Home meets superheroes. And it's about Clark and it's about Kal-El and it's about him struggling with something. And yes, you get to use his powers and fly around, but it's less about, crazy action, more about making people really love the character. I would, if I ran a company, I'd say, fuck it, I'm taking that gamble because that sounds fucking cool.
Yeah.
And you don't have to make that much, sell that many copies to break even.
Yeah, because it has great stories to tell, even original. I don't know, the comics you said are wonderful. I love Superman All-Star. I love Secret Identity. So they tell different human stories. They show Superman in different prisons. And we don't have to think about him only with the brute force. And I mean, it's fine if we can do a Spider-Man game with Superman that has narrative, that has that big budget. It's wonderful. As you said, only Sony is making that type of games. And maybe they don't.
Yeah, and I'm just saying that maybe if you start small with Superman,
you can build up. Yeah,
you can build up, right? People will go, "Oh, he's really actually quite cool,"
Yeah, of course. And even when I played Batman from Telltale, I thought, why not a Superman game about this in this style? I mean,
right.
Sadly, they went away. Now they're back, but I would love to see more of that type of games done of superheroes because they relate to comic books too. I mean, in their mechanics, they are similar, and I freaking love that. I mean, so let's hope about maybe you can do it.
You never know.
You never know. And there was, I don't know if you are running out of time, but I wanted to ask some questions from the chat that it's not working properly.
Let's do it.
And I have just one more from me. I'll do it shortly. There is I have a podcast with my co-host, which is Pedro Macarone, who did this background. It's awesome background. And we were talking in the last episode about a pitch for a multiplayer game that we would love to see, and it doesn't exist, and we don't know why. It's not crazy idea. It's not a crazy idea, but
don't pitch it to me. Don't pitch it. I don't want to hear it.
Okay, I can't legally, right?
Right. I don't want to hear your idea.
It's not like I want to pitch it to you to make it. I just want to know why there is.
It's got to be vague because if I hear it, I don't say I'm working on it or I'm.
Okay.
No.
I'm not a developer.
It doesn't matter.
Okay. No, it's just a multiplayer game about superheroes fighting kaijus. No.
Okay, let me give you a reason. Let me give you a great reason why that's a bad idea, okay? And I'm going to give it to you live, but now I'm going to make you bored for a minute because I got to find it. Hang on a minute.
No, it's okay. It's a multiplayer, like, I don't know.
Please stop talking. Please stop talking.
Okay, but it's not pitching a game. I'm not pitching a game.
Yes, you are pitching me a game. I will literally have to hang up. You cannot do it.
Okay, I'm sorry.
But I want to show your audience why this is a problem, okay?
Okay.
And I want to show you why it's a problem. Hang on. I got to find the folder. Hang on.
Yeah.
Let's see. Is it this? Yes. Okay. Now, I'm assuming what you're talking about. I could be wrong.
Okay.
But I'm assuming what you're talking about is sort of like a multiplayer superhero fighting game like Twisted Metal or Virtual On, but with superheroes?
I won't say anything because I don't know.
I'm trying to bring up concept art
Okay.
from a game that we pitched Sony X number of months ago, or not, it's probably a couple of years now, that was the exact same thing.
Yeah.
And so that's what I'm saying. The last thing I would want to do is if I ever do make that game, it's like, dude, I told you that game on your stream. And I'm like, no, you didn't. But now it sounds like you did. But I want to show you a picture. I want to show you a picture.
I'm just saying I'm legally not accusing David Jaffe of anything.
You would be fucked illegally because I told you multiple times not to say anything.
Okay. No.
I'm gonna fucking show you this thing because now I'm like, illegally, if I'm in court one day, I gotta be like, I showed it to him.
No. There's no problem, David. I owe you.
You don't understand. Listen, I have been sued before.
Okay.
And I'm not worried about you suing me at all.
Okay.
But I have absolutely been sued before, and it was a totally stupid lawsuit. Multiple courts threw it out of the court and said it was stupid. But it cost Sony hundreds of thousands of dollars to fight.
Okay.
It was exhausting.
In the chat, they are saying it's going to be a judgment on Vitter right now. It's coming.
Okay, hang on. Okay, I'm wondering how I can show you. Can you put something up?
You
on
can
the
share the screen. Yes.
Okay.
Let's see.
Oh, right. Yeah, let me share. Yeah, can I share my screen with your chat?
Yes, of course.
So when we were at Bartlett Jones, we were looking at a game that we were going to call Guardians that was basically a multiplayer online superhero fighting game that was inspired mechanically. We were looking at things like Virtual On. We were looking at Gundam Online. We were looking at, obviously, at Twisted Metal. Mm-hmm. This was a more refined version of the concept. We did a prototype of it. And it ended up sort of just not being something that Sony wanted to go forward with. And then we actually did one with slashers as well, which was really cool.
Yeah, that was cool.
but that's kind of the problem, right? Is that people don't. And again, I'm not worried at all about you. But it's one of those things where, let's say, for example, I ultimately make this game. And this is not a new idea. I mean, it's not like I own the, everybody's thought about it. I remember at E3, the very first E3 ever, these guys came up to me when we were showing off Twisted Metal 1. And they were like, you son of a bitch. They were kidding, but they were like, you son of a bitch. I said, what? They said, we've been wanting to make this kind of game forever. Right? So there's nothing about this that really is ownable. But what I would hate to have happen is, let's say I make this in 4 years and somebody in your chat is like, I remember Jaffe pitching that, or I remember you pitching that to Jaffe. And then suddenly that guy shows up in court and I'm like, fuck. Right. So that's why you just cannot listen to ideas. It's such
I understand. And I'm sad that I can't, because I was interested about your ideas because,
I'll tell you my ideas. I don't mind telling you my ideas.
No, okay. It wasn't the whole thing, but you are right around what we were talking. It's a wonderful idea. I hope you make it. What you're showing me, I will play it. But anyways, you can, if you want, we can talk about this more about it.
No, I'm good. I'm totally good. But thank you though.
Okay.
Tell me how my Spanish is. Here we go.
Okay.
Ideas nuevas que Jaffe está tirando ahora mismo para que la aprueben. That must sound so dumb. What does that mean?
I'm not sure. I'm sorry. I'm not sure.
It's from a guy named Herno Tonki.
Oh, Herno Tonki. He's a wonderful friend. Let me see. Ideas. He says new ideas that Jaffe is. He's explaining what you were saying to other guys that are not fluent in English. That you were pitching ideas to Sony and you were showing it to us, and and we are grateful for it. And
there you go.
I'm sorry if I made something that was troublesome.
You did not. Don't even worry about it. I mean, look, man, you're not the first. There's a lot of people who, it really sucks. A lot of people are like, why is the game industry so secretive or this, that, or the other? But a lot of it is just, there are a lot of times there's strategic concessions, but a lot of times there's also, legal issues. But people are like, but I would never do that. And it's like, yeah, most people wouldn't. But at the same time,
there are some people that would.
Well, there are a lot of people that would, and they don't even need a smoking gun. They'll just make shit up, right?
Yeah.
But a bigger part of it is what a lot of people don't understand who don't actually work in the creative industries is, and I'm a big believer in good ideas. I don't like people who say ideas are cheap. Good ideas are not cheap. Good ideas are gold. But doesn't mean only one person has a good idea.
No,
a lot of people have the same idea. But a lot of people who don't actually work in the field think I was the one that came up with that. So it wouldn't surprise me if someone was like, Fortnite stole my idea and I'm going to sue them. And it's like, your idea of simply basically making last man standing, but with more people is not so revolutionary. They just,
there are Japanese movies about Battle Royale. It's not like
that's right. That's exactly right. And what was the game?
PUBG.
Arma got to it first.
Yeah.
And it wasn't that no one had ever thought of it before. It's just that they thought of it and they were able to execute it.
Yeah. The execution is the key. The idea is almost nothing if you don't.
I don't agree.
Well.
I don't agree. The idea is almost nothing. I think ideas are really commercial and important. But here's a good example why ideas are important. Because, like you said, Days Gone probably suffered because thematically, even though I love the theme of Days Gone, because it was too similar to other games that were out there.
Yeah.
But I agree, execution matters the most. But a good commercial idea, let's put it this way: I would not be playing Second Extinction this weekend if it wasn't, it's Left 4 Dead but with dinosaurs. That's a great fucking idea. It doesn't mean the game's going to be good, but if it was just like, it's another looter shooter co-op game, no.
I bet that was the pitch.
It's great. It's fucking great.
But maybe I heard this several times in conversations in the geek community about when they adapt things. For example, I remember it for The Lord of the Rings. They said they would never do it right. They would never do it right, and they did. So I believe that every concept or idea can be made greatly depending on who does it and how he comes about doing it. Because, I don't know. That's why I said the idea maybe it's not the most important thing. Because I believe in the person who has the passion, who has the thrive to make it a reality. And you know more than me that there are accidents, the process shapes the ideas in the end. It's not like maybe you have the concepts, but then, I don't know, maybe I'm mistaken, no?
Well, I think it's true, but all you have to do is look at, say, movie directors that, like, look at Guillermo del Toro, right, and look at Pan's Labyrinth, or The Devil's Backbone versus Crimson Peak. Well, it's still del Toro. The man couldn't be more passionate, but one of those or two of those are genuinely compelling commercial ideas, and one of those is not, and the one that's not is Crimson Peak, right? So I think you're absolutely right that ultimately execution matters the most. There's no doubt, and passion to get that thing executed well matters the most. But I still think there's a great value in something that just the audience gets, right? That they go, I know what that is. Like, there's got to be some comfort in it's that real sexy alchemy of like 80% something you're familiar with and comfortable with, and that 20% that's really fucking weird. That you go, that's cool, man. And then you have to execute the fuck out of it. But that's the secret sauce. If you can get great execution with a sexy as fuck idea, you can write your own fucking ticket. You go to the goddamn races.
Well, thank you. I'll just close with the chat. I don't know if you're there, guys, because it kind of froze. If there are any questions, I want to thank you to the chat because I couldn't speak to them. I wanted to pay attention to David. and speak.
You mostly do games, right? What are you playing right now on your stream?
Well, I'm playing Fortnite. I'm playing. I finished Little Nightmares, the first one. I found it delightful.
Yep.
I want to play the second one. I'm playing. I started to play Subnautica. But I'm mixing it up. I don't know. Final Fantasy VII Remake. I played the start of the game. I found it incredible. Even though I would say that Japanese games tend to have some issues with me about their flexibility during gameplay. Sometimes they are like, you have to stand up right here to press triangle, or it won't. You know what I mean? And but it's really well made. At least until I played what I saw about the game. So that's what I've been playing, and yeah, I'll probably go back to Days Gone too. So the guys from the chat say. I have so much I can't say.
Say it all. I want to know it all.
Jaffe, thanks for everything and sorry for anything. I want to hear Jaffe showing off his Spanish. Do you know anything about Argentina?
All I know, we used to have a nanny from Argentina, actually.
Oh, cool.
And my kids spoke insanely fluent. And I guess a lot of people in California, and correct me if this is ignorant, if you hail from Mexico,
yeah,
your Spanish is a little different than if you hail from Argentina.
Yeah, they sound different.
She spoke Spanish, but it was from Argentina. Mm-hmm. And so a lot of times then she had to go back to Argentina. And so another nanny came in who spoke English and Spanish, and 60% of the time she's like, I don't know what your fucking kids are saying, because it was Argentinian Spanish. But I knew a little bit, but it was amazing how fluent these kids were. It was just like, what the fuck, man? Yeah, it was wild.
When you're a kid, you're like a sponge with languages. Yeah. I had
so
that too. So there you go. Arturos SKRZ says, honestly, does Jaffe think Sony will come up with any other new stuff besides the video pass? I truly think that's all they're up to in order to battle Game Pass. I don't think so, but maybe Jaffe can...
Well, I mean, that I don't know. What I know, here's what I know.
Yeah.
I know from people inside Sony, and they haven't told me anything that would get them in trouble. All they have told me is they use phrases like just wait. You know, when I talk about how are you guys not competing with Game Pass, it's ridiculous. They're like, it's like, just wait, you know. So it's clear there's something, and I don't think it's Video Pass. I think they're going to announce stuff this summer. What that is just rumors that I know. You know, whether it's all the backwards compatibility being emulated because of that patent with trophies, whether it is going to be they're going to start dropping new games that aren't big but on PS Now day one. Who knows? But what I will tell you is, I think Game Pass is absolutely going to change the conversation. You can't really say that on streams like this, or on my stream. Not all of my audience or all of your audience, but people who are hardcore have such a hard time, I have discovered, separating their own passion from being able to look at it at a business level. If you were to go on to like a business channel and talk about Sony's plan and Xbox's plan, I would say the vast majority of people watching the business channel would go, oh, yeah, they're basically doing Netflix for games, and it looks like it's starting to slowly work. So I can't imagine Sony is not going to answer it. The question is when, right? And I think it's going to be a huge change to the industry.
And what I think about Game Pass, about being Netflix, is that what happens to Netflix, and now Microsoft knows, is everybody took away their content and created their own services. So Microsoft buying studios, I believe, is getting ready to be this
That's
massive
right.
publisher and having continuous content that they own.
Yeah, that's right.
I don't know if Sony can reply to that because
Well, Sony just announced today, or it came out in their earnings call today or yesterday, that they are aggressively spending on third-party games and new studios. So, I think it's clear, if you want to be in the subscription game, you've got to have exclusive content that drives people there. We'll see what happens.
Yeah, of course. And let's see. Somebody asking, Nachinga Seto says, which god is your favorite? I'm guessing from God of War, from the Greek gods.
I mean, they all have pros and cons. I would go with Aphrodite, though.
Cool. Why is that?
Because she would be,
she's hot.
She's hot and she's really good, and that. But I mean, if it was who I would be, I mean, Hermes sounds like a lot of fun because it'd be fun to run fast. Zeus would be fun because you could throw thunderbolts. Poseidon would be great because you can control the water, but I don't like fish; they gross me out.
I know you didn't direct this one, but it was Stig, right?
Nice, yeah, but
Stig. There was Hermes around here. Because in that game, you pummel him.
Oh, yeah. I remember. But, yeah, I don't know. I guess all I know is I would not be Kratos. I would not be Ares. I would be I'm too much of a pacifist to be the god of war.
Okay. Wonderful. Acaviciando, which means like playing like crazy, says, if I could ask you about DLC and the impact they had on the video games industry these last few years.
DLC?
Yeah, like the downloadable content that it's an extra of the game.
Sure, but what do you mean? Do you mean like microtransactions and loot boxes, or do you mean like an additional campaign for a single player game? Like it's a big question.
He's not clarifying, but what I will assume it's the debate that was at first, that maybe the games didn't give you everything they had, so they could then sell you another bit after the release. Maybe that's why he says.
Well, what I will tell you about that, I mean, I blame the customer if they're upset, because gamers complain a lot, and I get it because it's an expensive hobby, but all you have to do is look at how much money Activision has made in a quarter. I think they made in the last quarter off microtransactions alone, not in the year, in 3 months. They made about $370 million. Okay?
That's not Fortnite make like a billion every 3 or 4 months for Fortnite.
It's right. So the idea that gamers are like, we hate this, it's like, no, you don't. You might hate it. I might hate it.
Yeah.
But no, their audience. What are they going to do? Tell that audience to fuck off? So I guess thing is,
but they changed a bit because they are like cosmetics. Maybe we are fine with cosmetic. We didn't like when they said the ending of the game or this next mission was closed, was in the disc, but you had to pay extra to play it.
Okay, that's a different thing, but that's also, I don't have a problem with that either. My view on it is like anything else. If you go to Sony, for example, and you buy a disc or download Last of Us Part 2, and you discover there's a whole new 3-hour mission that was bundled into that product, but you have to pay to unlock it, I don't have a problem with that. What I have a problem with is if what you bought, if Sony was very clear and said, this is what you get for $60.
Yes.
And you downloaded it and you're happy with your purchase. Done. Right? Done.
Yeah.
Just because the developer may have tried to save money by saying we don't want to lose more money by paying for the download or the server cost to store this shit. We want to put it on the disc. As long as the gamer's happy with what they paid for. It's different if you buy Days Gone for $60 and it's only 4 hours long, and then there's another 40 hours on the disc. and Sony's like, you have to pay us another 20 for that.
Yeah, I understand.
I think Sony can go fuck themselves.
Yeah.
But ultimately, that's up to the customer to say, I accept that proposition. I don't accept that proposition. But the idea that just because it's on the disc or on the download, it's just it's yours. It's like, well, that's
you're paying for the license, and
right.
It doesn't mean that whatever it is on the disc is yours. So
Yeah.
they have you're paying for access, let's say.
That's right. That's right.
And
I'm not saying that's good or bad. I'm saying that if you have had that experience, it's because you have agreed to those terms in that 50-page user license agreement.
Yeah.
And if you don't like it, if you don't like it, I respect that. But don't fucking complain
of course.
When you signed a contract that basically you don't like. Don't sign the contract.
Yeah, of course. Well, David, I'm taking all of your time. So you said you had to go to.
Yeah, I'm actually going to stream. So tonight, in about an hour, I'm going to stream an amazing game that just came out on Steam called Orbital. What is it called? Orbital Shooter. I think it's basically Resogun meets Hades. It's a really cool. It's very, very cool. It's early access.
What's
I'm playing that.
Orbital.
I'm going to bring it up right now. It is called Orbital Bullet. Is what it's called.
Orbital Bullet. Oh, I will check it out definitely.
Yes, and then I'm going to play a game called Mundawn, which is a really creepy horror game, and I'm just going to play those back to back. And then, real quick, tomorrow on my stream, at 11 a.m., Hip Hop Gamer is coming on. We're going to interview him. He did a really interesting video last week about why there are very few black people in games journalism. And so we're going to talk about that. And then a week from tomorrow, Troy Baker, who does the voice of Joel,
of course,
and Nathan Drake's brother, tons of shit, is going to come on, and we're going to interview him and talk to him about all kinds of great stuff. So it's going to be a fun week over at my channel. If you're interested, follow me on David Scott Jaffe at Twitter, and all the links are over there on Twitter.
Yeah, excellent. I will point them to the links, and of course they will know by now already because you make great content. That's something I wanted to speak briefly, but I don't want to take more time.
I'll speak about the content. Go. I love that. I got 5 minutes. Go.
Okay.
Talk about.
No, I see you so loving this new facet. You always did it with the blog, and now you're extending it with the gameplays and interviews and let's plays, basically, on your streams. And I find it wonderful. Of course, I would love you to make more games again, but this is. I don't know. I just enjoy your thumbnails. I feel like you're having fun.
I am having such a goddamn good time. What I will tell you about it, which I think is the reason I love it, is it doesn't really feel much different from making games. I know the output is very different on the consumer end or on the audience end, but the neatest part about it is how instant the payoff is. Yeah. So you can wake up and have an idea, and within an hour or two, it's out to the world. And do they like it? Do they hate it? Let me change it. Let me fix it. And I have ADD, and it really works well. It's a good match for the way my brain works. Whereas in video games, I loved the output, but it was so miserable for my brain because you would have an idea and you would just think it is the coolest thing, but you would have to wait sometimes 2 years before somebody sat down and experienced it after the team had made it perfect and improved it and we tested it and all that, before you could actually appreciate and know whether that idea was connecting or not. And I now that I have found something that's so instant, I'm just addicted to it. It's great.
Yeah, I have never done such a job for like 5 years, creating something every day and it's expecting the best. It must be really, really hard, really great too for your passion. That's why I don't usually criticize heavily on developers or maybe movie makers too, because we discredit them really quick because we spend an hour or two in something, watching it or consuming it, and we say, this wasn't worth it, or I don't know, they were lazy. I hear that a lot. And I don't think it's fair. And of course, someday I hope to experience such a gargantuan, if there is a word in English like that, project.
What does that mean?
And
I think end of the day though, the customer doesn't owe us anything except the money for what they've purchased.
yeah,
And so I agree. It's nice to be respectful of the fact that there are real people behind the screen making this stuff. And obviously you don't want to go into social media and be a dick. But it's not the customer's job the customer's job is to respond to the work.
yeah,
And if you play it for an hour and go, not for me, I thought it was crap, that's a valid response. That's a fair response. If you don't get into that business if you aren't willing, it doesn't mean it doesn't hurt. I'm not like, oh, you have to have thick skin. No, I have thin skin. It hurts when people tell me the stuff I make they don't like.
yeah,
It broke my heart. You know, I guess literally you can't break a heart, but emotionally it was very painful to see so much hate coming my way for a game that I loved very much. I didn't love Drawn to Death any less than God of War or Twisted Metal or Mickey Mania.
Yeah.
But you know, I'm also okay with the fact that, you know, I'm okay being sad and heartbroken for a while because it means that I've been able to put something out there that I believe in. And sometimes you win, sometimes you lose, but it beats not doing anything.
Yeah, yeah. And to close, I love that you play God of War, the newer one, the 2000.
Love that game. Great game.
Yeah,
Great
yeah. It's one of my favorites of all time, with The Last of Us and Last of Us Part 2. So you of course are a part of that legacy, and I thank you very, very much for your time. This was
man, of course. Anytime, hit me back. I'll be around. I appreciate you having me. All right, man.
Thank you.
I'll talk to you soon. Bye, everybody.
See ya. Bueno, chicos, eso fue tan increíble como lo sentí yo. Muy contento. No lo puedo creer. La amabilidad de este tipo. Me dio más de 1 hora y media de su tiempo. Como estoy empezando en esto. Le pregunté por Twitter y el chabón tuvo la amabilidad de venir. O sea, un genio absoluto, chicos. Apóyenlo en todo lo que hace. Síganlo en Gavin Plus Games, que es un espectacular. Aparte con un tono súper picante que le mete. Su stream está muy bueno, para el que no lo conoce. Ahora les voy a pasar los links por todos lados. La verdad que, aparte no hablaba inglés hace mal. Y me sentía un cavernícola total. Is this the... Pero bueno, pobre hizo lo mejor que pudo para entenderme. Y creo que se dieron buenas conversaciones.